Okay, we're going to get this started.
All right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I have a special guest with me today. I'm very excited to introduce this guy to you. His name is Baylor Lansden. He's from the Fertrell Company, and these guys are livestock nutritionists. And I actually met him through my chickens, and I had some issues going on with my chickens, and I emailed him, and he quickly responded back to me, helped me out with my birds. So then I begged him to come on the show and talk to you guys about it. And we're going to talk about the health of our birds and what we can do to make them even healthier and happier. And he's going to give you a little bit of a bio. He's actually originally from Louisiana, which I find real cool to have found someone way up northeast like that that's from Louisiana. Baylor, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thanks for the invite.
Let's start off and tell the audience, a little bit about you and what got you over to Fertrell and some about the company.
Sure. Well, I just started out in the FFA as a kid in high school. Went into my undergraduate in political science. Thought I was going to go into law. Realized that was not the track for me. Went back to school for food security, which is basically like the study of the food system. Through that, realized I wanted to get back into like practical agriculture. And then that's what drew me up to Pennsylvania from Louisiana. I worked on a research farm. I was a livestock manager on a research farm. And then from there, Fertrell hired me as a livestock consultant. So here, me and the other livestock consultants, um, we basically just consult on our products that we produce. So we produce a poultry NutriBalancer, which you're aware of, and other mineral blends for livestock. So we consult on them. And part of that consulting is building rations out for different animals. So the majority of our workday is constructing rations for various livestock.
So someone will actually get in touch with you guys and say, "This is what I have on my farm, and this is my conditions, and what do I need to feed them?" And you will build.
That's exactly how it goes. Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Well, it was almost what you guys did for me. What my issue was it was very, very hot. We were having another Louisiana hot snap, and we were having some 107, 109-degree days. And with our humidity combined with that over here in Louisiana, it just made it awful. And so I contacted Baylor, and he was talking to me. He said I needed a little bit more protein, if I remember correctly, in my feed, and a little bit more balance to some of the things that help them work that protein. So what I did, I sent him the tags off of the four different feeds that are available in my area. He looked them over, he dissected them, he came back and said, "Gary, this is the one that you need as far as all four of them together goes." I started with that with my birds, and within about a week and a half, I saw a difference, not only in their egg laying, but just in the way they were running around the yard being chicken. And over here at Sinlaw Backyard Chickens, we want our birds to be chickens. My girls free range every day. They have a blast out there. I think it's important if I can do this. And it really, really helped. And since then, we've kind of stayed in touch and went back and forth with things, especially with you being from Louisiana and knowing what we had up here for our weather. I really can't thank you enough. If my chickens could speak English, they would probably say the same thing. But when they started feeling better, I'm taking all the credit for them right now.
That's fine.
As
Take all the
But why do chickens in the heat of the summer like that, with mine especially, why did they need that extra little bit of boost of protein? Because usually we say 16% for laying hens, and that's it.
Yeah, sure. I think actually when you think about it in terms of like yourself, when a person thinks about it, they can kind of see what I'm about to say in themselves. That makes sense. On a really hot day, even if you're looking at like a big steaming thing of jambalaya, if it's really hot and you've been working out all day,
That
you may not want to. I was trying to be relatable. You may not want to really like go in on that. You may think, oh, I'd really prefer, a cool drink of water and maybe a snack or something like that. So the heat actually just draws down the need for energy for all organisms. So for humans, for chickens, whenever it's that hot, we don't need as much energy and we don't desire as much energy because eating more energy creates more heat.
and probably
So
not necessarily energy, is it?
no, but whenever a chicken is going after feed, it's going to be eating for its desired energy intake. So if it's very hot, it wants less energy. while it's eating less energy, it's consuming less protein if your feed is, say, a 16%. So if we have a 16% feed, it gets really hot. It doesn't want as much energy. It eats less feed and then gets less protein. So when we bump it up to a 19%, it's still eating for its energy, but it's going to eat more protein while eating that smaller amount of food. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
It really, yeah, I've heard Jeff and Jeff Maddox. I don't know if Jeff is your boss or a coworker or how all that works,
Boss. Yeah, definitely boss.
but I've heard him say on some other shows that birds eat more in the winter than they do the summer. And it almost sounds counterintuitive because, you think that they're going to be more lethargic in the winter time, but it takes
Mhm.
more energy to keep their body heat up and going.
Yeah. And again, I think we could probably see the same things for ourselves if we're out on cold days. You don't want a salad, you want a stew, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I'll be darned. Okay. Well, someone's looking at the tag on a bag of chicken feed, and
Mhm.
if they've got a mild climate or whatever the climate is. What are some of the key things that they want to look for on that food?
Sure. Well, I'd say like a typical backyard mild climate ration would be about 17% protein. Could go down to 16, but 16, 17% protein. You do want a fair amount of fat in there just to help keep the bird healthy overall. So to help keep the plumage healthy, help keep the skin healthy, to really take in enough. Or
I,
go ahead.
what I'm going to know is fat. I mean, is it soybean fat or
No,
what?
so on a tag it should just say fat. There
Oh, like
should be,
a percentage of fat.
yeah, it should be a percentage of fat, and I would want it to be at least 3% and ideally 5%. That's also going to correspond to like usually a higher energy in the ration too, which is good. So we want that fat around 3 to 5, hopefully about 5.
Okay.
Um, and then we want our fiber to be, and this will usually say crude fiber on the tag. I would want that to be around 5%. Again, at least 3, but 5%, about up to 6. That is one problem you'll see, especially in some conventional rations that use a lot of byproducts, is you may have a really high fiber. So you may have fiber that goes up over 7%,
Okay.
and we don't want that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. And the reason for that is, again, coming back to the human analogy, when you're eating a bunch of fiber, you just can't consume as much food, which for us might be a good thing.
Do that though.
Yeah. That might be something we should try out more often. But a lot of times you want your chicken to consume more for production. So you don't want to limit its intake by a high fiber.
Makes sense. Makes
So,
perfect. Now,
yeah.
I know through my own research and having chickens, since I was a boy, calcium is very very important for
Mhm.
laying. But
Yes.
relationship between calcium and vitamin D, am I correct?
Yeah, there should be an adequate amount of vitamin D in your feed. It won't necessarily be listed on the tag because it's not required of a feed producer to put it on the tag, but there should be an adequate amount of vitamin D in a balanced feed. Yeah.
Okay, and I would assume if you buy from a reputable food company and you're going to get that in there
Yeah,
because
you should. You should. Yeah.
and so over here in Louisiana, soybeans are a big thing, and in this
Mhm.
part of the country, they raise a lot of soybeans, they raise a lot of cotton on there. So is soybean, I've seen soybean or soybean meal or soybean byproduct
Yeah.
on feed tags before. Is that something good that I like for my bird?
So soybeans are in there for a good reason because they're a very digestible form of protein with a good amino acid profile. And amino acids are, your listeners don't know, are parts to a protein. So they have a, sorry, go ahead.
No, I found that interesting. I just
Oh, okay.
they were like that. Okay, keep
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah. So the crude protein matters, but what matters more is the balance of individual amino acids that make up that protein. So in a soybean, we use soybeans because there's not a lot of quote unquote anti-nutritional factors. So if a soybean is properly roasted or the meal has been processed correctly, there's no limit to the amount we can use in a ration. And you usually get a fair amount of amino acids in the correct balance that you need. There are some people that don't want soy in a ration. Those are for reasons because of phytoestrogens that are in soy. And I'll respect anybody's desire to take soy out of a ration if they want to, but I could say that it's much harder to formulate a ration without soy.
I would think so. But what are some of the supplements that people can think about using?
Without alternatives of soy?
It can be an alternative for soy, but I mean, I know, from your company, I buy nutrition supplements that I will mix into my chicken's feed, and
Sure.
it's just kind of a boost for them. And I forget the name of it. I know you that you could tell me. I don't do the
Yeah.
meal, but I do this other supplement. It
Okay.
maybe there's some things that people can get locally if they want to add to their chicken's feed, just to get them, that extra little step.
Sure. So if you wanted to build up the nutrition on your feed, if you wanted to increase the protein, you could use something like a high protein soy meal or a fish meal. A fish meal really gets there faster because it's a high protein, like 62% protein, great amino acids. So you don't need a lot of it to get the protein up.
For a long.
The only negative side of fish meal is that it can drive a bad taste in the egg if you use too much of it. So there's a good balance there. And then other nutritional products would be like the Poultry NutriBalancer, like you've been mentioning. That's our biggest seller here. That's the main driver of the company.
See why
And
I like using it.
yeah, good. That is actually just the basic mineral and vitamin pack to make up the ration. I tell people it's the kale and liver smoothie of the ration. It's like all of the nutrients, all the things that are good for you they don't want to eat. It's that on top of the grits and shrimp of the ration, I guess.
And guys out there, the nutrition ration that he's talking about comes in a bag, and it's very very dry. It's almost a very very small pellet. But what I did, not only I hope that this is proper to do that because it takes a very little amount that you actually mix in the feed. I will
Mhm.
And when I mix it in the feed, it helps it to cling to the food, to the pellet,
Yep.
instead of slowly migrating itself down. Then I makes me feel better. Makes me think that they're getting it all through that batch of food because I use an 80-pound coop work feeder at a time, so I'll dump a whole sack in there. Then I'll mix it through with the NutriBalancer that's just slightly damp enough that I feel like it sticks to my pellet.
As long as it's being consumed fast enough that it doesn't mold or go off, then it's fine.
My girls can eat. But
Okay.
I
Good.
45 chickens out there. You think you never feed them, uh,
Yeah.
they eat. Okay, my birds free range every day. So, and I tell people all the time with either my videos or podcasts that I do that free ranging is a wonderful thing. Let them eat the bugs and crickets in the grass and things like that. I'm assuming you guys think that as well.
Mm.
Now, I'm not in an industrial setting where I want to just micromanage my feed to the nth degree to get the maximum weight gain or get the maximum egg layout. These are my backyard girls out here. So free ranging still a good thing from y'all's point of view.
Absolutely. Yeah. In terms of what they're going to consume, it's going to be extra, but it's probably going to all balance itself out because they're getting a lot of great exercise out there and they're getting a lot of nutritious feed. If they're eating some more calories while they're out there, it's all going to probably balance out with exercise. So,
Watching chickens, or at least watching my chickens, is one of the funniest things that you can do sitting in the backyard. My wife will drink a glass of wine while she does it, and we just can't help but laugh. It's just something.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
to back up a little bit to whenever you and I first got acquainted with one another, and I want to use that analogy between a $25 bag of feed versus a $15 bag of feed. What can you tell that the audience is some of the biggest differences that those two bags are going to give you in the relationship between that and the chicken nutrition?
Yeah, so I don't want to always assume that the more expensive feed is better because I'm sure that's not always true. But when we're looking at a higher quality bagged feed, it's usually going to be fresher, hopefully. A lot of times that can mean it's a local feed, not always, but you want a fresher feed. You don't want as many byproducts there because you want basically ingredients that haven't been processed as much, so they've lost a lot of their nutritional value. So while byproducts might have a little bit of their space, and by that I mean like wheat mids, stuff like that, they're a lot of time just filler, that have lost a lot of their nutritional value. So you don't want that to be the bulk of your feed. You don't want to pay for a bunch of fillers, basically. Yeah. So I would say if you could read the first few ingredients, it's almost similar to if you're looking at processed food. You want to see stuff like corn, soybean meal, wheat, flaxseed, stuff like that, alfalfa. You want to see whole recognizable ingredients for your first series on your ingredient list.
Okay, well, I know if with a food ingredient, if I picked up I don't know, a bag of beans or something like that, or something that's been processed food wise, the way the FDA makes them label that and list things, the highest percentage is listed first.
Mhm.
And it goes down.
Yeah.
Will a chicken label be the same way on animal food?
If it's done properly, yes, it should be.
Okay, so what they see at the top is going to be the highest percentage in that mix that they have.
Yep. Yep. So it'll typically be corn. If there's corn in the ranch, it'll typically be corn. After that should be soybean meal, soybeans, and then it moves on from there.
We all need to pay attention to the label that's on our food bag, don't we?
Yeah. Oh, I think so.
Two, two or three things that I like to do with my girls. I'll mix up some apple cider vinegar, maybe
Mhm,
a month or so. Good
mhm,
gut health for that. But I will do. I listen another podcast listening with Jeff, and he talked about apple cider vinegar, but he also talked about Greek yogurt. Completely plain Greek yogurt, nothing added to it, no flavoring, anything like that. And how they both promote good gut bacteria by
mhm,
less room for the bad stuff to grow. They're not
mhm,
going in there and attacking the bad stuff. They're creating less room for the bad stuff to grow, and
mhm.
they're slightly different bacteria, and helping slightly different ways to help your bird. Correct?
Correct. Yes.
I
Yep.
must be a good listener then for this stuff. Okay, let's talk about treats. Everybody loves to give their chickens treats. I will give mine a lot of worms. Our black fly larvae. I constantly have people send me black fly larvae for Christmas. Okay, yeah, that they'll do, and shirts. I've never bought a chicken shirt. I'm wearing one today, and I've probably got half a dozen of them in my closet
Yeah.
now.
Chicken podcasters with chicken shirts seems to be a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm that guy. Uh, I will give my chickens apples maybe in the summer once a month. You know, I take the core out of the apple because I know the seeds are not necessarily good for them. And I know it's a sweet, and the sweet's not the best thing for them, but I will do that once a month or so. In the summer, I give them a little bit of melon as well. But I do enjoy giving them good chicken scraps from the house. We have leftover, greens and things like that. I don't give them rice as much as I'm from Louisiana. There's usually no rice left in the house to give them for one thing because I eat it all. But
Mm.
rice is a heavy starch. And why would I want to give them a heavy starch when I don't want my grandkids to have that? It's not really not good for them. But what are
Yeah.
some things that we can feel okay about giving our birds?
Yeah. Well, I would say something like those black soldier flies, mealworms, scraps of not that fatty meat or not very salty meat. All of that, that's completely fine. And I would say you could give it in semi-liberal amounts.
Raw or cooked meat or either?
Um, I mean, really, it's either I would say cooked just because I would want to like reduce the risk of like bringing a pathogen in. If you had some kind of
Raw meat. I keep a dust bath underneath my coop is a couple of feet off the ground. And so I keep a dust bath under it. So year round, they'll have a place to do that. And I move that dust bath out one day. Of course, if I'm doing something in the chicken yard, chickens are all right there. I moved
yeah,
it about three little tiny baby mice took off. They made it about 5 steps, and you know what?
Yeah,
Oh, that's about as raw as you can
yeah. I think the rawest thing I've ever seen a chicken do was I saw a baby bird fall out of a nest into the chicken pen. They
check.
took that baby bird out.
This summer, I found the chickens all in a corner, and I ran over to the corner. I didn't know what was happening, and they had killed a snake. It wasn't a huge snake, I don't know, foot and a half or something like that. But they killed
Mhm.
it by pecking its head. They knew where to go, and the snake was trying to get into a pile of bricks to get away from them, but it was
Wow.
too late. They ganged up, and they kicked that bad boy out. You know, they're
That's gnarly.
it's true. They are descendants from dinosaurs. That they are just amazing on what they do and how how tough that they can be at the same.
Yeah. No, yeah. So, yeah, like a little bit of meat, that's fine. Fresh vegetables and fruit, honestly, you can give them quite a lot of that because a lot of that is just water. Like so much of it's water.
I get
That you could, yeah, I think you can get away with more apples for sure. They'll be happy for you. I think the things exactly like what you were saying, the things that you want to limit more of are things that are just higher energy. So things like a bunch of rice, a lot of bread, of just foods that are heavy in total calories. You don't want to have as much of that just because you don't want them to get them overweight. And you also don't want to like give them a bunch of really high energy food that's going to take away from all the other nutrients that they're supposed to be eating.
Okay. So as we start to wind down a little bit, what would
Mhm.
you tell people out there who are looking to get into chickens? You know, I want to know what to feed my birds. Should I free range? Should I not free range? Which that's all kind of what you have locally going on. You know,
Mhm.
what do people need to know from your end? What you specialize in when they want to get into raising chickens?
Well, honestly, I think it's now, other than the fact that there's not as many people on the farm, it's easier than ever just because there's so many resources. So less people are growing up with it, but if you want to get into it, there's chicken houses everywhere. There's resources like this everywhere.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information there. So I would say, honestly, take a little time to get some information, listen to podcasts, watch YouTube videos and stuff like that, but then just jump right into it. Because, I mean, get a small but well-built chicken coop or build one of your own and go get a few chickens. They're pretty inexpensive. Get a good feed. That again, that's pretty available too. A fair feed is pretty available. And then just get rock and rolling.
Yeah, and I tell people relatively often, you may think a $25 bag of feed is expensive, but if all you've got is three or four chickens, that's going to last a couple of months, and especially
Yeah,
at them free range on top of that, it's going to last even longer. So it's really an
yeah,
expensive thing to do. Some of the poorest people in the world raise chickens and do so
yeah,
successfully. It
they
doesn't
do.
be this extreme adventure. One more thing I wanted to mention. Recently this summer, and not from my local feed supply, but I got some feed from a big box store, and I had feed mites in it. And I
Mhm.
didn't realize it till I put them in there in my Coop Works feeder, and then a few days later I went and got me a big scoop out because I was going to ferment some feed. I like to do that about once a week. And when I took that scoop out, they were just running everywhere. And I
Mhm.
noticed at the bottom of my feeder, it was mostly dust where these things were eating.
Mhm.
I started researching. I cleaned out the feed and I replaced it with different feed. But if I understood my research correctly, that the feed mites weren't necessarily bad for the chickens, they would eat them, but they're also consuming the nutrition that we want to have our birds.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's exactly that. It's that they're going through and eating a lot of starch, a lot of protein, and just cycling it into their own frass, their own poo, and then their own cells. So then they're just dying, and they're just reducing the total nutrients of the feed over time. Especially if the infestation has been going for a while. If it's a fresh infestation, they really haven't done much, and it's really not that bad. and they'll eat the mites themselves. But yeah, if it's been in a bag and they've been working on it, yeah, I would say it's not a good deal.
Yeah, for my birds, it actually ended up being 2 bags that I went through. So it was probably at least a 4 week process before I said, "Oh, I can't deal with this anymore." And one of the fixes for that, if you can't change who you get your feed from, I was told to put the feed in the freezer for 2 weeks. You know,
Yeah.
kill them
Yep.
out and go for it. You know,
Yeah, if you have a bag that's just got a little infestation, put it in a freezer. That's a great way to kill them off.
cool.
Yeah.
So, what would you like to tell the audience about the Fertrell Company and how they can get their hands on some of your products and how they can learn about your product?
Okay. Well, what I would say is basically we're here. You know, you can email us. So you can email livestock@fertrell.com with any questions. Uh,
Rell.
yes, sir. And we have a pretty good presence on Facebook, as you know. So you could contact us there and we can answer any questions that you have about our products, but also just feed and livestock in general. If you want our products, we do have an online store that includes shipping. It doesn't have all of our products, but it has a fair amount of them. That can be cost effective for smaller amounts. Like if you're a homesteader or backyard person, if you're looking for more, then you can contact us and we'll hook you up with a dealer that could get you a larger amount of our products.
Yeah, well, I know that your nutritional supplement, I get it at a 10 pound bag at a time, and it lasts
Okay.
almost 3 months. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
really does a great job. Well, Baylor, I can't tell you enough how much I've enjoyed having you on the show today. You are a wealth of information and such a gentleman to be able to do this. Our audience is going to have a great time whenever they listen to this, and they're going to learn something. Thank you again. Have a
All
wonderful
right.
day and have a
You
wonderful
too.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good Thanksgiving. Bye.